bunch of crazed dogs. Have some fun.
Get your popcorn ready.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
It's about I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
No. What?
Get your big butt out of here.
Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. And gentlemen, we have had the NFL draft. It has happened. We finally have these things we've been trying to predict and talk about, and we finally got it. And today we're going to end up talking about some of those results, some winners, some losers. My name is Andrew Teuscher. I will be your host for this show, and I am joined today by some incredible Fantasy Guides legends themselves. In one corner of my screen, I have Jacob Rhodes, Fantasy Guides contributor, known Cleveland Browns fan, and in the other corner, I have Jesse Preston here to join us as the heart of the team, ready to give some old-style takes and shift and mold the minds of people as he's been molding mine lately. Jesse, how have you been?
I've been great, man. Very, very excited. This is my time of year, right? It's where my two favorite things collide, college football and the NFL. And so just been a great couple of days. You know how it is, Jacob. We've been talking about this forever. Mm-hmm. The anticipation is just killing us. And then finally get to see things happen. So pretty fun, right, Jake?
Yeah, now we only have to wait like 20 more Sundays before we actually get to see any of this stuff happen on the field. So
hey, but you know what?
We're getting closer.
That is why you got to do Dynasty, folks. If you do not play Dynasty Fantasy Football, you got to do it because things are happening right now. Jacob, as our commissioner of our Dynasty League, is in there starting the draft instantaneously because everyone is so excited. Yeah. And, that gives us something to do over these next couple weeks. So thank you, Jacob.
Andrew is actually on the clock right now.
I know. And I think we should at least talk a little bit about his pick because I think that is actually a pretty difficult choice.
I think it'll be fun.
Yep. I'm looking at some trade offers right now. So I'm actually really considering a lot of stuff. But yeah, and I've been playing it up. Everyone needs to know you do not let your league mates know who you're taking. Make them writhe and seeing who's going to end up going in front of them. And that's exactly what I've been doing. But speaking of drafts, gentlemen, make sure that you are heading on over to Underdog and getting in on those drafts. If your dynasty draft isn't ready or you're not in a dynasty league yet, you can still draft. Head on over to Underdog, use our promo code GUIDES, GUIDES, to sign up and get $100 up to in matching deposits so that you can participate in draft every single day because every day can be draft day with the magic of Underdog. And make sure you guys give us a follow, like, subscribe, whatever the cool kids are doing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you can hear a podcast, you can hear our lovely voices. And yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do is talk about some of these draft results today. We're going to kind of work our way down our consensus boards. We're going to jump past some of the big quarterbacks who went because as Jesse was talking in our little pre-pod talk, we have talked a lot about these guys. Jacob and I, go back and listen. We told you what we're going to think if Drake May went to the Patriots, if Daniels went to the Commanders. There's no surprises there. And everyone and their grandma knew Caleb Williams was going number 1 overall. So we're going to try to jump past some of those more top-heavy, obvious ones and start getting into some of the guys who are still big and impactful, but not necessarily those quarterbacks we've talked about ad nauseum. So let's start off with Jesse and Jacob kind of going back and forth, mentioning some winners, some losers about these guys. And Jacob, of course, with his incredible mind, is already jumped to September. He's ready to spat about all of the veteran winners and losers and impacts. Jesse, of course, is our dynasty legend and is ready to tell you everything about every rookie. So let's hop into it. Let's talk Marv. What are some winners, losers, thoughts on this Marv pick here? Jesse, kind of being our dynasty start here. I'll kick off with you. What are some winners, losers of this Marv pick here going to the Arizona Cardinals 4th overall?
Well, I think he's a big winner. He gets to go there and be the guy right away. I think that organization is a winner. And then, Jacob, what do you think about how does that affect the team?
Yeah, it's a big positive for the team overall, big positive for Kyler. So if you want to go test the waters in your Dynasty League for Kyler Murray, now is a great time to do it. But the hype's already building for him. So they added Marv at 4, so he's got himself an elite wide receiver, one of the best prospects we've seen in a long time. They added Trey Benson in the 3rd round, another running back that can kind of help out of the backfield with Connor. It won't be Amari DiMercado taking second reps. It'll be Trey Benson. So everyone's number 1 running back. They got him. And then they added a tight end in round 3, and then they added a wide receiver in round 6. So they added 4 new weapons for Kyler Murray to throw the ball to. I think an elite receiver on the outside helps guys like Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch even be better, and Trey McBride's going to be in the middle of the field still. So there's a lot of weapons on that offense. Kyler's going to be able to sling the ball a lot, and they didn't do a whole lot to help the defense. So hopefully it's a lot of high-scoring, high-paced, fun games in Arizona this year.
Yeah, I don't think we have to convince you that Marvin Harrison is good and should have gone at 4. I think the real question is, now that he's there, we were talking way earlier in the offseason about how Marvin Harrison's a top 10 pick on Underdog right now. So immediately, like in more of a redraft lens, and I kind of make that your specialty there, Jacob. In a redraft lens, where are you viewing Marvin Harrison in overall? Are you in on the wide receiver 1 train already?
I have him as my wide receiver 5 right now. So I think so.
Draft?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. Well, then answer me this: where do you have him in overall dynasty rankings? Let me do a little name game with you here. I'm assuming you're going to take Justin Jefferson over Marv still, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jamar over Marv.
Yes.
CeeDee Lamb over Marv.
Yes.
And Jesse, hop in here too. Someone stop me when I get there. Amon-Ra over Marv.
No.
No.
Yeah, I think that's your
you
line of
right there.
demarcation. Yeah, I think that's when it gets really interesting. There's just nobody there, and it's just I think that he can be that guy.
Kyler is that good too. I don't think people look at it enough that way, that Kyler is a good quarterback and will get him the ball a lot.
Yeah. I believe in Kyler. I think he hasn't had a whole lot of weapons, and like you said, now they're giving him that. So.
Yeah, I think especially like good, bad, great, whatever. Kyler is good for fantasy no matter what. So that is some reactions to the Marvin Harrison pick. Obviously amazing. I really wished AJ wouldn't take him at 2, so he'd slide to me at 3 and he'd do something crazy with quarterbacks. That dream will not come true. Instead, I might be getting my hands on one of these other guys, starting with Malik Neighbors. I don't know who wants to pick up first. I'll jump to you first, or actually Jacob here first, because I went to Jesse first last time. Winners, losers, Malik Neighbors. What are you viewing here?
So these rookie quarterbacks, ideally they go to a situation where they can be the number 1, which check, and they can get a lot of targets, which check. But you want them to have a good quarterback, which is no check in this situation. But I do think he'll still be able to get peppered with targets. I don't think they will be a lot of great targets, but target volume is at least a plus. He is an elite talent. I don't want people to forget how good of a prospect Malik Neighbors is. He's the number 1 in almost any other class except for this one. So please don't forget how good this receiver is. Don't let him slide too far in your drafts. Trust the talent. Trust that the Giants will do something different at quarterback next year. You'll just have to be a little bit more patient with Neighbors in Dynasty.
My thing is there's just nobody. There's nobody there. So he kind of has to be the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got to find a way to insert him into the offense right away.
Yep.
We will see. I am not a Daniel Jones or Drew Lock believer. I just don't know that either of those guys are going to be able to carry a big time wide receiver like that. I like the pick. I think it's what they needed to do in that situation. But I think that in some ways, Malik Neighbors is a loser, because I think that, had he gone to a better situation with a better quarterback, we could be talking about him much higher. I do not think that you should be taking him in a super flex league with the 3rd overall pick, personally. I think that those quarterbacks are going to have a much higher return on value this next year, and then return on value over the course of the next couple years based on where Neighbors is going. So I do think Daniels, just quickly with Jaden Daniels, he's a winner going with Cliff Kingsbury. He has a record of working with dynamic dual threat quarterbacks. I do think that Drake May is a winner going to the Patriots, and them adding weapons. I think the thing we have to do with Drake May is kind of get over history a little bit and know that this is like a new regime. So I think both of those picks would still be above Neighbors at the 3rd. And I think you should strongly consider JJ McCarthy. He would be the biggest winner for me in the quarterback class. The Vikings moving up and taking him, I think we can all agree, when you look at the weapons around him with TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, the other JJ.
Yeah.
And, they're going to be really, and then Aaron Jones too, who is a great receiver out of the backfield. I don't sleep on JJ. I started texting you, Andrew, right before the pod. I started putting it into the sleeper chat that you may regret passing on JJ McCarthy for the next 5 years. But I didn't put it in there because I thought I could just tell you on the pod. So this is me telling you that, if you sleep on JJ in a super flex league, he could be the one that has the best first season next year. Well, Caleb Williams has a really good situation now too with all the weapons he added. But he could definitely do a CJ Stroud type of first season with all of those weapons around him, which just makes him even more special. Do I expect that out of Jaden and Drake May? I don't know. So, I know that they are consensus. Those guys will be higher. Consensus, you may have neighbors higher. But when I did my little, in the draft while it was happening, I moved JJ up to number 3. And then I thought that was a little crazy and I slid him back down. But I don't think it's crazy to draft him in the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th spot of a super flex rookie draft, because I think he's in the best situation. And I think that for whatever reason, we've just decided that he's like a middle round, first round talent. All he did was hand off the ball. I've just been trying to say for a long time that he's a more complete quarterback than that. This guy was a blue chip recruit. He ran all over the place as a freshman. That's what they used him for. He has the ability to be athletic. He's smart. He's Kirk Cousins, but with speed, So could he do what Kirk Cousins had done previously in that offense and then run in a couple touchdowns? Absolutely. I think there's more proof of concept with that offense than any of those other offenses that we're talking about. Even Cliff, right? I mean, we know Cliff has done it at times, but I have concerns about Jaden Daniels holding up for 17 games. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I just traded up to the 106, and I'm hoping that I can get JJ there. So we will see how the chips fall.
Hey, don't say that on the pod. This is the only people that listen to the pod.
We'll get to see who listens.
People.
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping JJ would slide to the 109. So now my day's a little bit ruined. And you know what? Jacob texted me before the draft and said, "Hey, man, honest answer, would you do this trade?" And I should have said no. I should have said you shouldn't have done it. Anyway, no, I'm in lockstep, dude. We've been talking all off season. Caleb Williams and Marv, I think, have almost been in a tier of their own, and especially now that they are where they landed, especially specifically with Marv. And from there, dude, I really don't care who you take at 3. There's so many arguments. This draft became so special with JJ. I needed to see a landing spot, JJ to a bad landing spot. I didn't think he could maybe ascend, but now he's in a good landing spot. I really do think you can take him at 3. It is an incredible draft that we just witnessed. I mean, in other years, if I told you a top 10 quarterback going 3rd overall in a super flex draft, nobody would wince an eye on it. It's just all the other players in this draft are so stinking good that he kind of just falls because he's boring. And he went to the boring team. The Vikings are exciting. The Vikings aren't this isn't it's some really attractive team. They've had Kirk Cousins. That's been their brand for a while. But it's such an awesome landing spot. I really love all of these picks, 1 through 8, I think is what it would technically be. I love them all almost equally. And I don't know what I'm going to do, guys. I don't know what I'm going to do with the 3rd pick. I'm trying to let on like I do, but I don't.
I think it's really difficult because there is that. I think Williams Harrison is clear. And then after that, it's really kind of pick your poison. My take would just be, these ones that I go through and I highlight as green as this is a great situation. And I already liked them as a prospect. Generally speaking, that works out well, right? And the other way, right? When we saw JSN last year go to Seattle and we were all like, ugh. And that kind of worked out. I think he's an unbelievable prospect, but that cost him, right? I do think it's a little bit different for Rome Odunze. I will say that. I heard really interesting take by JJ Zacharyson on Rome Odunze's situation going to the Bears, because he talked about how JSN wasn't sliding into a high target role, but that Rome Odunze could, because he plays a completely different wide receiver position than what JSN did. So
right.
It was a really good take.
It's Keenan that would slide into that JSN role.
Yep, exactly. So you put Keenan in the slot, and they really need a Rome out there. And I think that some of these guys, It happened with Denver too. When you get a rookie wide receiver and a rookie quarterback that are supposed to kind of be the future at the same time, they get to be together now throughout this entire process, right? They get to be together with rookie minicamp. They go to all the rookie meetings together. Everything they do, they're together. I think that could really build chemistry as well. I was not a huge fan of whoever went to the Bears pre-draft, but the more I thought about it, the more I've heard Rome talk, I think you could make a case that you could, like, if you took Rome over Malik Neighbors, I don't think that would be a bad pick either. Like it really is what, like, it's pick your poison, and you're in a tough spot, Andrew, for sure.
Yeah, and what needs to be talked about kind of transitioning over to Rome Odunze is that people aren't mentioning that DJ Moore's contract has one more guaranteed year on it. 2024 is the only guaranteed year. Like Rome Odunze could not just like, oh, Keenan's old and out of there now, and and he's developing chemistry with Caleb, so maybe he'll be DJ Moore's 1A after. Like, there might not be more. I think they will sign DJ Moore. They've already shown they're gonna commit to giving Caleb every chance to succeed and give him weapons. So I think that DJ Moore does stay. I don't know why DJ Moore would want to leave. It's a great situation. But like, there's a chance, like, that is in the realm of possibility that DJ Moore wants out, and it's just Rome left standing on its own, like the old empire itself, with Caleb Williams at the helm, Julius Caesar leading Rome to greatness. It's back. It is back. Trojan wouldn't be a Roman. But anyway, I think it's going to be excellence there for years to come. Jacob, you're feeling the same way with Rome?
Yeah, Keenan's also a free agent next year, so you're not going to have to wait long, I think, for some massive target opportunities for Rome Odunze. I think as early as next year, he'll be viewed as the number one on that team on the outside. So I would rather have him than even DJ Moore in Dynasty. He's that good of a receiver. Redraft probably not as much this year, but Rome is a very, very good prospect. He's a very good talent, and Caleb Williams is going to be throwing him the ball for the next, hopefully, 10 plus years. So.
Okay, asking as a friend who might have the 3rd overall pick in a draft,
No.
Should I be concerned that Malik Neighbors didn't know his quarterback's name and called him Janiel Dones?
I prefer that name, so I think that's a positive.
Janiel Dones is much more exciting than Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
But that did happen. Dude, there have been some phenomenal interviews from rookie wide receivers so far this year. One we have not actually seen a interview from. I'm kind of disappointed. Is Xavier Worthy is another guy we have to talk about. Looks like we kind of covered Marv, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Drake May, Rome Odunze, JJ McCarthy. Any lasting thoughts before we kind of push into that next tier, guys?
No, I'm jumping to Xavier Worthy because holy cow, could there be any better of a situation than the 2-time world champs moving up to draft you?
No, there's not.
with Patrick Mahomes throwing you the ball. So, we debated back and forth on if this guy was a complete wide receiver or not. And my boy Andrew, he liked to throw around the last few diminutive wide receivers that they've drafted, the little slot guys, and
Sky Moore, Mecole Hardman.
Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman. Worthy's a different player than that.
Yep.
So he's on another tier than those guys ever were. And I think it's kind of an indictment of those players that they went and got him as well, that like, we would like to take this to another level in this area. Mecole was a cornerback, and Sky Moore was largely an experiment out of Western Michigan, which is a really tiny school. Xavier Worthy, I've said before, very low breakout age, showed up at Texas and was kind of a beast right away as an 18-year-old, much skinnier back then than he is now, player. And I think he can do it all. And I think you've just put him in the most dangerous situation that you possibly could. Where is too high for him to be drafted now, Jake? I mean, I don't know. I think that you could make a case for him in that tier of everybody that we just talked about, because there can't be a better situation for a guy that is literally broke the 40-time record.
Yeah. And he's got the 3rd best breakout score in this draft class behind only Marv and Malik. So it doesn't get any better from that term or from that perspective. You've got Patrick Mahomes tied to you. They are going to use him in every single way possible to make him succeed. Drafting up for him or trading up to draft him tells you all you need to know about how they feel about him and how much they're going to use him. I think from that lens, it does negatively impact Rashee Rice, at least a little, and at least Travis Kelce from a small target perspective. And then it elevates Patrick Mahomes a lot. I think we might be getting back to seeing Mahomes be an elite quarterback one option in redraft, and hopefully he can elevate to that quarterback one status again. But no rushing there still limits him. But last year we saw that defense be really good. They didn't address the defensive side of the ball in the first round. They went after wide receiver. I think they want their offense to be electric again. And what better player to do that with than Xavier Worthy?
Yeah, I had to get my last punching shots in there. I was only slightly serious about the Mecole Hardman Sky Moore thing because I was left for nothing. I had nothing left to stand on other than it is slightly concerning. Like the Mecole Sky Moore stuff does live slightly in my head where they do have a specific role they want the receivers to slide into, which I know sounds stupid, but like they've been looking for this. They want to put him in a role and maybe not let him expand much past it is kind of what my concern is. Like Rashee Rice, like that was a slightly irresponsible pick. I think what they did last year, because that was a dude who was in a role that they had actually never seen. They didn't see Rashee Rice do the role he ended up in Kansas City. He was the X receiver running just down the field and jump balls. That's why I was ticked off. I was wrong about Rashee Rice. As then they started using him differently. I'm like, wait, he looks really good crossing over the middle and taking yards after the catch plays. Like, what? Why didn't SMU do this? And of course, I should assume Andy Reid's better than the SMU coach. And that's kind of where I'm going with Xavier Worthy. If I should have some trust, but I think Xavier is going to be shoved into a very, very specific role because Rashee Rice has his very specific role and Travis Kelce has his very specific role. But it's going to be used creatively with a good quarterback. So, Jesse, yes, he's been on the rise for me. Going into my personal rankings, the only receivers that I have Xavier Worthy currently behind, other than the top guys, like I don't have him up there with Rome, Neighbors, Harrison. I don't think anyone does. I have him just behind McConkey and Thomas for reasons mostly of I think I just really trust Harbaugh in an offense where there's no one else to get McConkey touches. It's like there's no one else there. That's more what I'm diving into. And Thomas, I think, has no limits on his upside. He just has to figure it out. I do think Worthy is limited. Right now he is. Can they get him better? Because his route tree says he's limited. His success rate by myself, Matt Harmon, says he's limited for now. He's small. I don't think he works well over the middle, but doggone it, it's the Chiefs. It doesn't matter. He's going to score touchdowns. He's going to get yards doing a specific role. So Worthy is moved up my board. All right. The folks can be happy at home. Moving us on past Mr. Worthy, onto the guy I have above him, Brian Thomas. Do you guys think this is a good or a bad landing spot? Just to kind of lay the grounds in the Jaguars receiving room where he goes 23 overall. They trade back. He's still there for him. We have a Christian Kirk sitting there. We have an Evan Ingram sitting there. We no longer have a Zay Jones sitting there. Sorry, Jesse. Is this a good or a bad spot for Mr. Brian Thomas? Jacob, I'll let you kick off.
I think it's a great spot for Brian Thomas. I'm still a believer in Trevor Lawrence and his arm talent. He had a bad injury-riddled season last year. He'll bounce back in a big way this year. Apologies to the Colts, Andrew, for that, but the Jags are going to be better next year.
Boo.
Yeah. I don't think there's anyone he can't beat out for that X role on that team. So he can take that over and grow into that as much as he wants to. His ceiling is very high in that offense. He's not going to have to compete with Christian Kirk's type of targets. It's only Gabe Davis there now that he's going to have to compete for targets with. And we've seen that experiment. I don't trust that experiment. I would rather take the new talent in Brian Thomas. I trust the prospect. I trust the team and the quarterback. I guess we'll just have to see, Jesse, but I know you're close to home there with the Jags wide receiver room. So what are your thoughts?
You guys know it's been tongue in cheek, the Zay Jones thing, right? I'm not
absolutely.
a Zay Jones truther, but I don't even remember. He was like a toss in some trade a long time ago. And he did have a couple of good best ball days for me, but he's been cut. Either moving on from him. It's just interesting because you've always used this word limited with Xavier Worthy, but in watching them play, Brian Thomas is way more limited in the route tree and what he does on the football field than Xavier Worthy. So I actually have him behind Xavier Worthy because I think that his thing is being a deep threat, and he is more of a one-trick pony. So that's why I would have Worthy ahead of him if I was picking at the whatever that is, 7-8 spot or whatever. But I do think it's a great situation, and I do like the player. And so, winner. but we don't, I was trying to are we going to get to some of these other guys down the list here? Or Andrew's just doing winners and losers of everyone in the first round we've talked about the first round of a rookie draft 7 times now, Andrew. We gotta move past these guys, except for Brock Bowers. Let's talk about him before we get any further down the list.
Please do. Brock Bowers finds himself so upsettingly to me on the Oakland Raiders. He goes 13th overall. My Colts were talking about trading up for him, and I think they would have. They probably just really didn't think Brock Bowers was going there. So he finds himself on the Raiders. Jesse, this has been your boy all offseason. I've seen lots of takes already, positive and like really, really positive and really, really negative. Where do you land with Brock Bowers on the Raiders?
There was a dagger, man, for one of my most favorite prospects that I've looked at in years, right? It doesn't make any sense to me that they went and made that pick. It's the worst possible situation that he could be in. I was trying to think of worse situations, and I don't know if I could figure it out. It's like, I think anywhere was a better situation. Yeah, maybe, right?
He'd play ahead of Kyle Pitts, no doubt. And I want to say behind Travis Kelce, but no, that's awesome. There really doesn't get worse.
Yeah, hate the landing spot. Absolutely hate it. I think what I need to do with this particular player is trust the evaluation process and not just drop him way out of the first round, right? Because this was a guy that if he had gone to the Jets, if he had gone to we had listed off all these landing spots that would be great. You guys did a great job on the pod the other night. The Raiders, they already have Michael Mayer. I just have no idea. So apparently what they were doing was just best player on the board, and they couldn't believe that this guy fell all the way to them because they had him up there, as a top 10 pick. And that's the route they went. But man, when you have a bunch of other needs too, I did not like the pick for the Raiders organization. I hate it for fantasy. I hate it for Brock Bowers, all of it. So I think he's still, right on the fringe of that first round in a rookie draft. But it's sad. It's a sad pick.
Yeah, it was a luxury pick from a team that they're not in a spot to be taking luxury picks.
Absolutely.
A lot more help on their roster than tight end, which they just drafted in the second round last year. And I'm no secret, I'm a big Michael Mayer fan, but we can't forget how good of a prospect he was coming into the league. He had first round grades and fell to the second round. Had not a great rookie season, but he does a lot of things differently at tight end than what Brock Bowers does at tight end. He's more of a blocking pro type.
Prototypical.
And he's the prototypical tight end. Brock Bowers is a special type of tight end, and I don't have any faith in the Raiders to be able to use him to his full abilities. I don't see them getting that type of usage out of him, which is unfortunate. And you've got 2 big target hogs on the outside with Adams and Myers, and it's going to be tough for him to find a real specific role like he can excel in on this team with Gardner Minshew throwing him the ball. And it does suck. It really sucks. I don't like it.
Yeah, this kind of has TJ Hawkinson to the Lions written all over it. In years back, Hawkinson's not this great of a prospect, but he was definitely a really high tight end prospect. He sat on the team, and as soon as it got getting good, he got traded, and now he's in a good spot. I think it's might be a few years before we get to see our Brock Bowers. One guy who's going to get a chance to start right away, though, and a guy I'm now weirdly obsessed with, thinking about. I'm not saying I love him or anything, but Bo Nix is so interesting now, I think, going to the Broncos at 12. And I guess I was just I really didn't think he'd go in the first round at this point, but he ends up a 12th overall to Jesse's Broncos. So I'm going to make him sit on the back burner right now. Let him just sizzle on this Bo Nix stuff. Jacob, winner or losers of this Bo Nix pick at the 12th overall pick?
Winners is Denver getting a quarterback that they liked. This is the quarterback they wanted from the start of this draft process. At least that's what all the rumors were telling us. So they got the quarterback they wanted.
Sean Payton was saying it's like when Mahomes was there and he missed him. So he's basically saying it's Mahomes.
Yep. This is their guy. That's who they wanted. So that bodes well for the team. That bodes well for the prospect. There are better talent options on that team now. They got Troy Franklin late, which I guess we'll jump into that a little bit, but he can become the number 1 there. He's still got Sutton for now, I guess, on the outside. They drafted a running back that I love very much who will go unnamed for certain reasons. But they have more talent on that team now, and they got the quarterback they want. So I think he's a winner from this draft process. He's easily the it sounds bad to say the 5th best quarterback prospect in this draft, but he is a clear mid first round grade in Superflex rookie drafts. You could take him as early as 8 or 9. I don't think I have any problem with that. Like Jesse was talking about, quarterbacks retain value really well, especially first round quarterbacks. So I think he's a winner of this draft. It's just not super exciting, the landing spot, but I think he can excel there.
All right, Jesse, release it. Let it out. Your boy Bo Nix on the Broncos. Winners, losers. Is he a winner or a loser? What you thinking?
So the funny part is, I talked about Bo Nix. I think he was still at Auburn, literally, on the podcast one time, and I don't even remember what the context was, but I brought it up, just looking at prospects down the list, and I was like, man, I really love this guy. I don't think he's a first round pick. Like, I think he's a really great athlete. He's fun to watch. If you guys don't know any athletic quarterbacks with visors, I just it's like a fetish of mine.
Was Bo Nix a visor guy?
He was until his last couple years at Oregon. Then he just started doing the eye black that like goes the whole face eye black. So no, I've always liked him. And then it was really Joel Klatt. That was the first place that I heard it. Is he played for Sean Payton. He was in a mini camp with the Saints. And he said, you know what, I've been there, and this is the quarterback that the Broncos should go get. And this Bo Nix kid can work with scat protection. Have you guys ever heard that term before? Scat protection. So leaving nobody but the linemen, sending running backs out, sending tight ends out. So they send everybody out empty. And the guy has to get the ball out of his hand quick. And he said, this guy is a point guard, and this is exactly what the Broncos and Sean Payton need. And then I got to just watch all of these C+ grades, C- grades from all of the pundits. And I have no idea why, honestly. I don't know why getting your quarterback that could just be a starter from day one and upgrades the entire offense is a C grade. I don't get it. And I think it's just because somebody somewhere decided, when they were ranking players, that he should be in the 20s. And so if you take him at 12, you've now overdrafted. And my whole thing is, I'm like, what should they have done? Because if they had traded back and Bo Nix went to the Raiders, we're talking about a completely different team, completely different excitement level in Denver, Colorado. And I just don't think that you could make that mistake. I think what I had said all off season was, if they trade up, like I didn't want to sell the farm and go get JJ McCarthy. I like him as well. But we have given away too many draft picks for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. So I think they just stayed where they were and got the guy that we should get. I don't know why that's not a better graded pick. I'm extremely excited for it. And I think, I'm not calling him Drew Brees. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes or whatever. You're throwing out all these names, but he is the type of player to execute that offense. And he may be able to execute that offense at a higher level than Russell Wilson. So whatever Russell Wilson finished in fantasy, let's just assume that Bo Nix could be that. And then
15.
And then where would you put him then in a draft? And if you got QB 15 the first year,
with some rushing upside.
Rushing upside, I think you could be in good shape there. He could squeeze his way into the top 12 if you're lucky. So I don't love the weapons, so I'll agree with you guys on that. That's hard. That makes it tougher for him. So I didn't have him as a winner or a loser. I think that's exactly where he should have gone, and I think it was a great pick. And that's how I feel about that, Andrew.
The weapons are better now than what they were when he got drafted.
Yeah. And honestly, when I gave the grade, I was mostly reacting to like my fantasy point of view of this. Like Bo Nix going there, just see, it's what I expected. It's like, it's fine. Like he's going to do just fine there. I think he's such a floor play. Like not that like he only has like he is only floor, but like I just don't know how he isn't there for 5 years. And he isn't just putting up some sort of production year after year. Like he can make every throw. He is mobile. He has rushing upside. I just really think this is such a solid, underrated pick in terms of fantasy. I think Bo Nix is more of a late first prospect, but it's a quarterback. So you have to shoot that up. So that's kind of where I went with things. But yeah, Bo Nix, great landing spot ish. in terms of like scheme, I think he fits well there. Let's see if we can get him some more weapons, which he did end up getting. But some guys who did get weapons finally is a guy like Justin Herbert. So Jacob, did you have Justin Herbert as a winner, getting a guy like Ladd McConkey to start the second round there for the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, the LA Harbaughs?
Yeah, Herbert's kind of like how you were just talking about Knicks for a second. He kind of stayed where he was. If they would have drafted Neighbors instead of Joe Alt, I think he would have been a little bit more of a winner, but I think also getting that blindside protection was more important. So getting a second round receiver is nice. It's great. I love Ladd. But Jesse, you tell me, do you think Ladd McConkey can be a number one receiver in the NFL?
I don't know.
He feels more like a two.
And he does. And there's just something about, like, it's like, I almost would have felt better about him going to a situation where he didn't have to be the alpha.
Yeah.
Because so I had him as a winner, and I have the Chargers as a winner for getting Alt and him back picks. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I get a weird vibe about it that he's like, they just don't really have a lot around him. You know, if he had gone to the Chiefs, if he had gone to the Bills, if he had gone to the 49ers, I think all of those places, there's someone else to kind of take the heat off of you. And then you can surprise people. Right. And so I don't know, because he wasn't like an alpha at Georgia. Right. He was like this weapon that you kind of use in interesting ways. And so I was kind of expecting him to be a team like that. So I mean, we can kind of lump this whole next group of wide receivers together. In my opinion, I have them back to back in the rankings. And I don't know which one I like more, but Keon Coleman to the Bills is a winner, and Ricky Pearsall, holy cow, he's probably the second highest mover of the board, you know, from where we had him initially to like where he went and where he's going to be drafted now. So I have those three players all together. And I think if I was sitting there and I had to choose between those three, Ladd is the one that I'm like having this hesitation with, which is weird because I've loved him all along.
Right.
I just don't know. Like, the other thing about Harbaugh offenses is there's a ton of 2 tight end sets. There's a ton of running the football. It's not very creative. It's not that creative. And so for me, really like Keon Coleman to the Bills. I think that's a perfect fit. A guy that they needed right away, a guy with one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. You know, so I love that. Ricky Pearsall is a great fit. I don't think he's going to do much this first year. So I actually think I would go Keon, Ladd, and then Ricky Pearsall, kind of in that order. But they're all winners, honestly.
Yeah, I am in total agreement with Jesse, and I'm so glad he feels the same way I do about Ladd, because we loved him coming into this process, and the situation just feels kind of weird. It's like it's Herbert's probably number one target, but he's not like an alpha type receiver, so it's just a tough, weird little fit that we're gonna have to see how it plays out. But
here's what we need, and I just have zero faith in this, is Quentin Johnston to take a leap forward. Because if you could establish
further back,
if you could establish something on the outside, right?
Yeah.
Like, and just something out there. If they would have been able to get Bowers in the first and then get Ladd, right, I would be really into it. But it's just, it feels a little funny for some reason, just getting this weird vibe around it. I think I'm way more into Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman was a guy I was really high on.
Mm-hmm.
I had him as my 4th wide receiver, you know, way before anybody else was creating rankings, because I'm just doing this like all year long, because I'm like, this guy is a freak athlete. And so when you pair that with the situation that he just got thrown into, I think that one's pretty exciting.
He looks like a guy that can be an alpha receiver on a team, and especially in that situation with Josh Allen, where all the other targets they have right now are kind of intermediate route type guys. Keon has a big role that he can just step right into day one. So
here's how I want you to think about it, Andrew. Answer me this, okay? We get down into the red zone. All right. We are and we'll even add Xavier Worthy into this. You get down into the red zone. Are the Chiefs throwing touchdowns to Xavier Worthy? Are the Bills throwing touchdowns to Keon Coleman? Are the Chargers throwing touchdowns to Ladd McConkey, or the 49ers throwing touchdowns to Ricky Pearsall? I think Ricky Pearsall is not getting any of those targets.
No.
this season, like he may get them in the future. I think Xavier Worthy is going to have a hard time getting targets with the current weapons they have. I think Ladd is going to have a hard time getting targets because Harbaugh might just run the ball twice and kick a field goal. I think Keon Coleman's the guy to me that it's like he's our jump ball guy down in the red zone. We're gonna get him, like he's the weapon in that situation. So I'm excited about Keon Coleman again. And it was funny because he got kind of dragged through the mud in the pre-draft process.
Yeah, the answer to all of those is like run the football, give the ball to Josh Allen, throw to Travis Kelce. Like it's actually just like none of these guys.
I know, right?
Unfortunately.
But who is the most likely out of those, right?
100%. And my thoughts on Lad McConkey, to cycle back to him real quick, is Harbaugh just had a little stretch slot guy in Roman Wilson, and we saw him lead alpha a Michigan, not prolific passing game by any means, but like I just think McConkey is just going to be solid. I sent you the comp because I saw it from someone else. Jordan Addison, chef's kiss. Yeah. I just see him being that, and I thought that was what Jordan Addison was.
And dude, I got to give you props for that Roman Wilson piece for Michigan because that is spot on. They will serve the same role. So yeah,
exactly.
And when they were in the red zone, they were actually going to Roman Wilson. He caught a buttload of touchdowns at Michigan this last season. So really, really efficient in that area. So maybe he does get a look.
We're back in on Lad.
Yeah.
You know what, Andrew? Good job, dude. You sold me.
Lad McDaddy might get some work in the red zone. Spread the nickname, Lad McDaddy. But yeah, Keon Coleman's a dude I just want to buy in on because I love him like more than anything else. But you had to have seen the pressers. He's out there. They ask him about his coat because he's wearing this giant yellow coat. It looks like it could be like designer. He goes, "Guess where I got this?" And some press guy goes, "Tom Izzo's closet." He goes, he looks at him weird. "I got it from Macy's." And he was talking about how he buys stuff on clearance, buying seasons ahead.
Oh, I love that.
I love that dude. Now
he is.
I'm scared of Coleman. He's really like he is such a good athlete, but he's such a basketball player. And like I love his slant route. I'm a huge basketball guy. Played lots of basketball, coach basketball. His slant route is a cut to the basket by a guard, and that's who he is. And it's awesome. I'm afraid though, I don't like Joe Brady, the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator, and I think why Stephon Diggs wanted out. I think part of the reason he's crazy, but the other part of the reason is Joe Brady doesn't design looks. He just says, "You play that role, go." And I'm just so scared they're going to put Keon Coleman on the outside and just jump ball, which will be fine in the red zone, but it ain't going to be efficient down the field. I want to see Keon Coleman in the Rashee Rice role. The one that they just ran with the Chiefs in Buffalo would be incredible. But that's just my thoughts on Mr. Keon Coleman. And then Ricky Pearsall. All right, so I had to ask, do you think that this is a sign of drafting Ricky? They also took Jacob Cowing later on in the 4th round.
Yeah, and I just have to throw in he was one of my losers because of that. I actually
Cowing?
I was really excited about Cowing as a sleeper. He was going to be somebody I was going to get on this pod and go, "Oh man, watch out for this guy now." Now you put all that draft capital into Ricky Pearsall and then take him way later. Just not a fan of that. So that was one of my definitely one of my losers. I know that's further down the list, but felt bad for him because I think he's an electric player. But yeah, sorry, finish your thought there, Andrew.
No, I'm just gonna ask a guy I liked as well in Cowing. Do you guys think that this is now a sign of the Niners are trading one of either Debo or Ayuk? And how much does Pearsall go up in the case of one of those guys moving? Jacob, I'll start with you.
I don't think they're going to trade either of those receivers right now, or at least this offseason. Maybe middle of the season they do, but I think NFL teams like depth way more than fantasy football players do. Unfortunately, they don't see it the same way we see it. I think they just keep all three of those guys. They didn't really have a true like number 3 receiver. That's a role that Pearsall can step into, and then next year he can step into a much larger role. So he's sort of a long-term dynasty asset.
Which is lame, right? It's just, I mean, for me, I want to win right now. I think, I think Roman Wilson, you can make a case, is in a better situation. He's a player I really liked around that same level. So, you know, who are the receivers that he's competing with? I can look. Quez Watkins, Calvin Austin III, Denzel Mims, Des Fitzpatrick, Van Jefferson. Let me know when I get to a good receiver here.
George Pickens.
Yeah, exactly. George Pickens and Roman Wilson can be their 2 weapons right away. So I think that I think Pearsall is going to go higher in drafts, but I think I would be pleased to watch Pearsall go and then end up getting Roman Wilson, because I think he's going to have more opportunity. And I do think that he's a dynamic wide receiver doing the things that Andrew talked about. Hopefully we see Ladd doing. Lad McDaddy? Is that what it was?
Lad McDaddy. Spread the word.
Let me throw another name at you, since you're kind of looking at it in that lens. Someone that a team traded up into the first round for, that also will have pretty minimal target competition, in Xavier Legette, who gets to potentially take over an extra role on a team that couldn't be any worse on offense next year.
You guys know my feelings on this, but I'll let you talk.
I have loved that guy from the first, I don't remember the team, but it was 2 slant routes, and that's all I had to see, where he caught the ball even, and he was even with them, and then he was leaving, and he got to the end zone 10 yards ahead of the guy that he caught the ball even with. Somebody told me that during that game, at that time, his like miles per hour, or however they track all that stuff,
faster than Tyreek's.
Yeah. And that is something that's very exciting. I personally like him. I think that the difficulty is going to be that breakout age, and then how old he is now. Both of those two things. There is some history, though, recently of some receivers that didn't do anything till their final year that are now doing things in the NFL. So it does happen every once in a while. I have him kind of in that no man's land, honestly. It's I think I would go Coleman and McConkey, but maybe over Pearsall. I mean, better situation than Pearsall. They're right there. You get to argue over all of those now. Roman Wilson, kind of all in the same area. So, yeah, that's tough. I didn't do winner or loser, but that's a player that I like. And it's kind of there's a little bit of a, like, just the vibe for me is like, I ended up getting Jaden Reed, just kind of fell to me in the draft. And I was like, I like this player. I didn't do anything. He just kind of fell to me. All right, I'll take him. I think that could happen with Xavier Legette, where somebody will be really pleased with the type of dynamic player that he can be, because he catches the ball and then he goes.
Yep. And that first round grades, that means a lot. They traded right up in there to that 32nd pick. They'll have a 5th-year option on him now if they want it. So
yep,
he's got a first round grade.
And there's another guy, Andrew. Have you seen him in interviews? He is.
Oh my God, he's so nice, but I can't understand a word he's saying.
Oh yeah, no idea, but great guy. So
he
wish him success.
I wish him so much success, but he has this thick Southern accent, and it just sounds like he has molasses falling out of his mouth with every word he says, but everything's with a smile. He asked him, like, are you excited to be in Carolina because that's where your family's from? He gets to the podium. Oh yeah, I'm real shy to get up there. I'm going to play football with my friend.
Boomhauer. I think the guy's name was Boomhauer back on this King of the Hill was this show way before your guys' time. But here, Hammer now. Yeah, money Hammer now.
He sounds like the guy from Waterboy.
Yep.
But I'm out on Legette. I don't like the Panthers. I don't like Legette. You got to do something before your last year, but we've talked enough on him. I'll move on from that. I do want to mention a quick stat. I went and dug up just regarding this. I got curious into the first round receivers. Like, it means something. Move up into the first round. It's costly to get guys. So I went and dug a little bit up on just statistics on dudes who went in that 20 to 32 range, that into the first, versus guys in the second. And essentially between 2010 and 2020, we saw 22 players taken in that 20 to 32 range at the end of the first. We saw 9 of those guys, 41% of those guys, had 2 seasons of basically being a usable wide receiver, 13 points per game. 41%. Then I went and compared that to the guys who went anywhere in the second round. So, like, this could be like pick 60, like way further back. There were 49 guys between 2010 and 2020. 16 of those dudes had at least two usable seasons. Again, that 13 points per game PPR, that's 33%. And 8%, it ain't that much different, like, especially with the small sample size of 22. There really isn't that much difference between a guy who goes in the second round and a guy who goes at the end of the first. And that's what NFL teams, analysts will tell you anywhere. Anyone who can listen, picks 25 to 60, same grade. Like, they are not regarded any different.
Is this an Adonai Mitchell thing?
No, it is not. No, it is not.
Speaking of losers,
this is why he's bringing it up.
I promise
he does have to be a loser for how far he fell. I had talked about pre-draft about how I was going to let the draft capital kind of dictate my thoughts around it, because I think that there's some like character concerns, right? Which is stuff that like we don't really get to see from the field or from the data that Andrew really likes.
He doesn't believe in diabetes. Let's get that out there. Adonai Mitchell doesn't believe that insulin is needed in the human body.
So some weird stuff there. I think he goes to a situation where there's not a lot of receivers, but he also has a quarterback that I'm not sure is. We'll see how his accuracy has come along. We haven't got to see him in many games, but he was not an accurate college quarterback that could really like support a big time wide receiver. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I was surprised that he continued to fall and fall and fall. And, you know, we had talked about him maybe being that guy that the Chiefs move up and take. And then, you know, look then on day 2 there, and he just kept going, you know, behind Leggett, behind Coleman, behind McConkey, behind Jalen Polk. It's like, wow, Jalen Polk, really? And yeah, so that's tough situation there. I do think that Hail Mary play, right? Like, I mean, value wise, he's going to fall down in drafts now. If you listen to this pod and if you followed this process, you know that that's a really talented player that is now going behind a bunch of other players. So, you know, I don't mind a dart throw at where he's currently valued, but I do think, you know, you have to consider him a loser going behind all of those other players.
Yeah, I really think Adonai Mitchell is a wash this year. Watching the Colts religiously, he's going to be in the Alec Pierce role. He's going to get 3-4 targets a game, and what he does with them, he does with them. So it's going to be a misery for fantasy. I think long term, it's going to be good. He gets to play and be nurtured, which is what we needed from him. No matter what, he's going to learn from Reggie Wayne. Big fan of that. It's kind of like Ricky Pearsall. You're gonna have to wait 3 years to maybe see something, and even then, it might not be great. I want to transition.
That's not that fun. I want to have instant gratification.
I am out. If it is not instant gratification, I'm done. So I'm not really in on Adonai Mitchell. Pushed him way to my board. We need to talk about some of these running backs, gentlemen. That's where I want to shift our attention, because we kind of bounced past a Jonathan Brooks that I really want to bring up as a guy who goes to the Carolina Panthers. Let me get his pick overall in round 2, pick 14. So early second round to the Panthers, where Jacob and I talked. There was one good landing spot, and that team, the Cowboys, actually took nobody. And really, the Panthers might have been one of the next best spots. You guys see Jerry Jones accidentally leaked that they were pretty much going to take Jonathan Brooks in the second round.
Oh, I'm glad he did. It gives me some hope for his health as a Panther.
So,
no one knew more about that medical process, as we've alluded to, than the Cowboys. They were the ones working on Jonathan Brooks. So that is a running back room that he can definitely take over. They like to run the ball in Carolina. That is someone that can definitely handle a workload in the NFL. I've seen him as high as like the 10th pick in some rookie drafts. I think you can get him early second, and he's easily the RB1 and the biggest winner of this draft for running backs, because no one else went to a great landing spot where they could take over a clear number 1 role. But Brooks did. He is someone that is definitely talented enough. He's got a solid draft grade on him. I think he can win just by volume alone. So it's not terrible. Could have been worse.
See, and Andrew, I refuse to talk about the running backs, because I think I have no winners. I have no losers. All I have is every single guy is the Chase. It's the Chase Brown experiment. They all have question marks. And so you need to, in my opinion, you kind of have to stick to guys that you're like, okay, like that you've evaluated previously and you really, really like. Because I don't know, like literally, I just started writing compliment. I wrote it. I swear to God, I just kept writing it because every one of them is a great football pick.
Yeah.
You know, Blake Corum, great football pick. I have no idea what that's going to be in fantasy. Trey Benson, great football pick. Fits right in. Marshawn Lloyd, great football pick, especially with those contracts, everything else. Every single one of them, Shipley, Irving, Davis, Wright, Estime, Braylon Allen, even every single one is a backup running back just right there. So we're talking about which one is like, who's going to get injured, because I don't see any of these guys overtaking anybody except for Brooks. I think that you're right about Brooks. I think that Brooks could slide up, but man, for me, it's going to be hard to take any of these running backs when you have Troy Franklin's Adonai Mitchell's, Malachi Corley's, Luke McCaffrey's, all of these guys that I think way more upside. I think what you do is, if you're a Saquon Barkley owner, you get Will Shipley, right? I mean, you lock down that handcuff. I was a Mixon owner and I took Chase Brown and I'm happy with that pick, but I had to just kind of sit on it. It's the most boring. I know you don't want to hear it, Andrew. I know you wanted some winners, something great from these running backs, but we also talked about how lame this running back class was. And it's like everybody just drafted their backup running back.
Yeah.
Audric Estime is perfect for Denver. I am excited for that. Perfect in fantasy. It totally irrelevant.
Wait and see.
Yeah, Mister.
So it's just I think it's every single guy is Chase Brown to me. Every single guy. So it's choose your poison, choose the team that you think will be it. And then Jonathan Brooks has question marks too with the health and everything else, and he didn't really, how many years was he a featured guy that really carried a team in college?
I don't think that's fair to him.
I know, but I'm just
very,
saying,
very good prospect on that team that he was not going to start.
I'm just saying, okay, there is risk there. So everybody that wants to make Jonathan Brooks a home run,
yeah,
I don't know about that too. So I am almost in an avoid as far as running backs, except for my boy. Here you go, guys. Here's your sleeper pick of the entire draft.
Oh, baby. Oh, I know who it is.
Kamani Vidal going in the 6th round to the Chargers. Don't be surprised. A couple years down the road, he's the featured guy there. He was an absolute stud at Troy, somebody that I've been high on for a long time. I know he's a 6th round pick, so we all just forget about him. But go ahead, take your 4th rounder. Take a dart throw on him or Tyrone Tracy Jr. because they're both in maybe the best situations.
That's who I was going to mention is Tracy, who went to the Giants, and I mean they've got Devin Singletary leading the room right now. So
there's nobody in both of those rooms, and those are both two pretty dynamic running backs at the college level.
Yeah, that
they don't got to do a whole lot to get onto the field. So. Those are my most exciting running backs. I know, Andrew, that's not what you wanted to hear, but Kamani Vidal and Tyrone Tracy Jr.
I am legally not allowed to trash talk Devin Singletary ever again after the Devin Pierce situation. Dameon Pierce situation, I'm out. I can't talk about that. My lawyers suggest against it. I'm with you guys, though. I want to put my name on Brooks. I think Brooks is... If we're looking like prospect tiers, he's not Bijan, he's not Gibbs. Don't even think I'm going there. I don't think anyone is. But whereas Rome and Neighbors and Harrison are in this elite tier of wide receiver, and then we have our questionable wide receivers below that are Worthy, our Thomas, our McConkey. That's where I put Brooks in terms of running backs, and he found himself in a spot where there's a lot of upside to look there. I really like Dave Canales. I think Jonathan Brooks could be another Rachaad White for him. So I'm willing to say Brooks is a 1st round valuable player, and I really like where he landed there if it's not the Cowboys. Yeah, other than that, running backs, just fart noises everywhere.
Yeah, stop all the Blake Corum talk, Twitter. It's driving me nuts.
I think that they can both live in harmony together and make that team better.
There's plenty of work to go around there.
Yeah.
Sean McVay wants to run the ball.
I think it's exciting. I think that's a great landing spot for Blake Corum. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's good for him. But yeah, I'm telling you guys, down the list, every single guy, it's like what you should be doing as a dynasty player is looking at the contract status of that starting running back. Mm-hmm. You should be picking up your handcuff for whichever guy you have. Get Bucky Irving if you own Rachaad White, right? Like you should just be going in and handcuffing each. These are all good running backs, and they're all going to be the number 2. But it's like also you don't want to use up all of your dynasty draft capital on a guy that's just going to mostly, get in there every once in a while.
And they are all dart throws in best ball drafts or at the end of redraft leagues. They won't be
absolutely,
but they are all big time handcuffs. If that starter goes down, then we've got a different conversation on our hands.
Andrew, can I lead the conversation somewhere? Because somehow this craziness, we have not. And I think it's because we've been going in order of where we would be selecting. We have not discussed Michael Penix Jr.
Oh, what happened with him?
What the actual F?
Yes, that's the grade.
What happened? What happened? What were they thinking? they just set that organization back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Joel Klatt had some amazing points about how they divided the locker room before they even got the locker room together.
Mhm.
Like you take Kirk Cousins, hasn't even been there, and you've already alienated him. Like, what a dumb ass move
Yep.
on all accounts, and so sad because we have this historic quarterback class
Mhm.
where we're seeing 6 guys that I think could all be starters in the NFL,
Top
and
12.
and one of the 6 goes to a situation where they have a starting quarterback. It makes
The backup.
no sense whatsoever. And now we
Yeah.
have to suffer through another season with some slap in for the Vegas Raiders throwing the ball around, like guys that don't belong as starting quarterbacks.
Yep.
We still have those situations, even though we had this influx of all of these great players. What a losing pick. What a terrible decision for an organization.
Mhm.
Anything you can add to that, Andrew?
No. Like, the only explanation is that Kirk Cousins pulled an Andrew Luck, and we just don't know it yet. Like, he's retired. Like, Kirk Cousins decided to forego the money, and he's out. Like, that's the only thing that makes this, like, okay. And what I don't want people to keep talking about, I keep hating this. There's the video out of the Falcons owner going up to the GM of the Falcons and saying, like, giving him a talking to. That's not what happened there. Like, look at the other film. He gets on the phone, happy as can be to talk to Michael Penix himself. Everyone was cheerful about this. How did an entire room of people get
I don't
together
know.
and let him do that?
I don't know.
Please. There needs to be an adult in the room.
How does this happen?
He
Man,
needed
I
help
would be,
too. On
I would be
defense.
so upset. God, anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like
they could have
the
taken
only-
Rome.
Right. They could have done a lot there. I mean, it makes no sense to me. Unless they are currently in trade talks with Vegas or the New York Giants, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't understand it. I feel so bad for the guy, and he's a much older prospect.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the other part. If you took one of these 3-year guys, they take Drake May. You're like, we're just going to sit on Drake May. It's going to be a Jordan Love situation.
Would have been awesome.
But yeah, you take the oldest guy in the class, the guy with the most injury history.
Mm-hmm.
It makes
He'll
no
be
sense at all.
28 at the end of the contract.
So yeah,
so
on
upset
the
by that.
contract, there is only 2 years of guaranteed money. So there's sort of an out in 3 years, but he will
Best
be
3 years.
he will be almost 27 at that point when he gets a chance to start, and he was the 8th pick in the NFL draft.
And here's the thing in fantasy, like I used to say this, like, oh yeah, draft this guy or don't draft Penix. Let someone else take Penix. And in a year from now, trade for him. No, whoever takes Penix in your league is not moving him. They're going to get him in the 2nd or the 3rd, and they're just going to take him and be like, no, I've waited a year. Why would I give him up? Like, there is just no win here. It stinks. It's the worst. When he does start, heck, there's weapons everywhere, but darn you, Falcons. Heck to you down there in Atlanta.
You treat him in your rookie drafts like Jesse was talking about the running backs. He is, if you have Kirk Cousins, then you can draft him.
Yeah, that's the only viable choice. Only reason that you would do that. All right, Andrew, my other thing, I know we're getting long in tooth here. I got 3 more winners. Can I
go
talk
get
about my 3 winners? I'll go rapid fire here. I know Jacob liked Malachi Corley throughout the process. A little sneaky pick there by the Jets, kind of later in the process. If you want to throw a dart at him, I wouldn't mind that. Luke McCaffrey is by far the biggest riser from where we had initial rankings to where he is now. There is nobody in that, like he could find his way onto the field relatively quickly for the Commanders. And he is an amazing athlete that is unrefined. And so if he gets to the NFL and they teach him how to run routes, he's played wide receiver for 2 years of his life. He was a quarterback in high school. He was a quarterback at Nebraska. And so he has a lot to learn there. And, we already know about that family. I think he could be a big winner there. Ben Sinnott going as high as he did. This is an interesting one for me because I think he's a winner, and I think you're going to see him shoot up boards and be, the 2nd tight end taken. I don't think that he's a viable dynasty player, but you have to consider him a winner for as high as he went. I just think that he's more of like a Kyle Juszczyk type player. So I just got to throw that in there. And so those were my last 3 greens. And then
one more. There's one more to mention. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned him yet.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Jermaine Burton, 3rd-round pick for the
Ooh-wee.
Bengals.
Yeah,
So
that one,
some character concerns, but if T.
Yeah.
Higgins is gone next year,
Who day?
you know what? Andrew and I both liked him, right? Andrew?
Big fan of Jermaine Burton.
So if we're talking about on-field stuff, this guy is elite. Like,
Yeah.
I think you could put him up. You know, there were receivers that went above him that I think he's just as good or better than. My concern, okay, I watched, I don't know about you guys, but I watched College Game Day crew doing the draft. I had to watch
Yeah.
Kirk and Nick Saban. Nick Saban, who coached the guy, was kind of like, you know, if he could just get his life in order. And
You don't love hearing that.
That scares me. That scare because those guys, all they ever do is say good things, right? They're like trained, especially when it's like their guy, their former player, and everything else. You know, he moved around. He moved from Georgia to Alabama. That's it's kind of weird. You're like the 2 best teams in the nation. He's just bouncing back and forth. I think it shows you that the talent's there, but you are rolling the dice. Okay, you just have to know there's a little. So I didn't do it as win or loser. I did it as like, okay, I'm sitting there and the pick comes to me and he's sitting there. I'm going to have to think long and hard about my life choices. Do I want to swing for the fences? That's how I feel about that pick and that player after hearing, especially Nick Saban's thing. Like, I had heard it previously, but it was the way he said it on the telecast. Spencer Rattler was the other one, guys, that I don't know if you caught this on the telecast, but Steven texted me, he goes, "Did you watch that QB1 show?" And I'm like, did I watch a documentary about high school quarterbacks? Of course I did. That's why I love Sam Hartman. That's why I love Jake Fromm. You know, there's all these players that you fall in love with. And then what's really sad, I don't know if you know this, Andrew, but they actually had Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson. They did it. They did the filming and then never released it. That like company went out of business or something. So they did Anthony Richardson his last year in high school. You just didn't get to see it. But they literally, teams were like, watched that documentary and were like, I don't think I need any Spencer Rattler on my team, you know, and just talk about being 18 years old and like affecting yourself for the rest of your life. That was a tough one. That's a tough one for Spencer Rattler. He's definitely a loser in this process. Sam Hartman,
round 5 either.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Sam Hartman not getting drafted at all, little surprised by. And then I'll give you one more loser. Isaiah Davis, who was a player that he was going to be another one of those guys. Guys, I got you a super deep sleeper here. He played at South Dakota State. He went to the Jets after Braylon Allen. Completely irrelevant now. Ooh. So that was a tough one. That's another loser for me. All right, I hit all of my notes. Sorry, Andrew. This is my thing. I got to make sure we touch on everybody. The Falcons are idiots. The Cowboys are idiots. The Bears, Rams, and Chargers look damn good to me. But yeah, I'm excited.
All right, one more guy one more receiver room I wanted to bring up just because my gut is screaming something's going to work out here. It's the 2 guys the Patriots took at receiver along with Drake May. As man, there's no one else there. And the Javon Baker quotes, I have a type. It's the Jermaine Burton, Adonai Mitchell, and Javon Baker. Guys who are crazy talented, but also just crazy. And I love them so much. So Javon Baker came out and said he was ticked. He got drafted in the 4th round by the Patriots. Not by the Patriots, but in the 4th round. And like everyone had him mocked there. No one had this dude going like dramatically higher. And his quote was, "Man, just show up with your popcorn. I make people in wheelchairs stand up."
That is right.
He is insane. Like, and so Javon Baker, but also Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk was a dude if we had another pod to stamp names, I would have stamped my name on Jalen Polk, a guy I was rising on late. I didn't think he'd go this high. Like, I'm not going to say that, but he's just a do-it-all kind of dude. I like finding these guys who are kind of like low-key under the radar because there's a lot of other talent around them. Like, is it the quarterback? Is this receiver's better, so he can't be great? I like that profile. Justin Jefferson was something similar. He's not Justin Jefferson. Get that? No, I shouldn't have said that. But like that sort of profile, I think he'll do it all for the Patriots, that Jalen Polk. But Javon Baker is also a really, really good scheme fit with Drake May. And this is going to be a Cleveland Browns style offense. And I think one of these wide receivers is going to work long-term with Drake May. Jacob, is there, you agree with that? And is there any last minute guys you want to hit on?
Yes. And it's definitely Polk over Baker. Don't do
I agree.
otherwise. I've been seeing that a lot on Twitter of Javon Baker is the more talented guy. And it's like, okay, well, why
no.
didn't he go round 2, pick 5? So
No, I think what you do is you just get Baker at value, right? Just
Yeah,
wait,
third round.
wait for Baker to come to you, because I do think that he is a dynamic player. Jake, before you answer though, I got to throw this in. Have you ever seen the Crazy Hot Matrix thing? It's a YouTube video guy where a guy talks about women, and he
Okay.
talks about where they arrive on whether they're crazy or
Oh
hot.
yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
seen
I got
that
you.
before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That it just Andrew reminded me of that, because he's up there with the like redheaded stripper or the hairdresser, right?
Yeah.
It's like he's going all in on these questionable character wide receivers, and I freaking love it.
I got a type.
Yeah, but he has a type. I just had to throw that in there. But yeah, you like Javon Baker, don't you?
Who, me or Jacob?
Jacob likes him.
I do like Javon Baker, but I definitely like Polk more. I've just been seeing a lot of Baker over Polk talk on
Yeah,
Twitter,
I just think you
straight
just
up, and
I just think you just wait and take Baker at value.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you guys aren't going to interject and throw any last second guys on there, man, what a draft. It is so much fun. The draft is just like, it is the Super Bowl in April, and it is always such a good time. And next week we're going to come at you guys. We were already talking, probably talk about some veteran impacts. That's what always gets forgotten right after the draft. Is Jacob was hitting on it a little bit. Like, we didn't talk like winners of the not drafted, Zeke Elliott, Joe Mixon, these dudes who were just on Jameson Williams, guys who were on teams who got no competition, who are kind of prospects in themselves. So we're going to talk about those guys as we move forward, but that'll shut it down for this fine evening, gentlemen.
Hey, one question for you
Get in there.
guys. Neutral, try, because I am not neutral in this situation. Troy Franklin, I want to know what are your thoughts?
I was a fan going into the draft. I've honestly been shoving the draft capital into the back of my head looking at him. So I think it's a good situation he landed in. It is the quarterback that he excelled with in college that will be throwing him the ball. What better spot for him to go to? So I am a fan.
I thought he was Jalen Hyatt, and I think I even said that on a pod where it's just like he does one thing really well, and I think he's a decent receiver outside of that. Him landing with Bo Nix, I like that a lot. That synergy, I really think, is going to help both those dudes transition really well. Might I say again, a limited receiver, but a receiver who does some stuff very, very well.
I kind of felt like he was limited. Like I felt that in the evaluation, but I saw just a ton of potential. I heard it was because of the frame. Like, people were scared off by just how skinny he was.
I don't buy that, the way receivers have been drafted lately.
I don't know. He was the other one. I mean, I do have to say, Andrew, we did pretty well. Like, where we thought they would go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but he was one that fell quite a bit. So a little bit surprised by that. I actually think the Broncos should have taken him in the. I was upset they didn't take him in the third. So then when he was still sitting around in the fourth, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe we still got this guy.
Great pick there.
Yeah, I think a lot of value at that point. But yeah, just wondering if that scared you guys off, or if you're still kind of in on that. So
I'm in later.
I'm in.
All right. Yeah, I'm in later too, I think.
Amazing.
All right, Andrew.
I'll take us out of here. Make sure you guys are following the page at Fantasy Guides. Get yourself a draft guide. Get yourself our rookie guide sitting there on fantasyguides.com. Follow the page at Fantasy Guides on Instagram. Follow Jesse at Debbie Rookie Watch. Follow Jacob. I mess this up every time, at FG Rhodes FF.
You got it right.
I'm on a roll. Follow me at Slam Your Keyboard FG. And make sure you're staying tuned for content. You can find it visually on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Give us a like, follow, subscribe, and spread the word about how great we are. Gentlemen, say goodbye to the friends at home.
See everybody.
Peace.